Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of The Infinite Infinite by M.K. Williams. This is a sci-fi book from 2018, I think, or 2019. It's a self-published book. I received this book from the author in exchange for a fair review. She has a writing channel on here that you should check out too if you're thinking about or writing a book. So I'll include a link to her channel in the description if you're curious about that. So, a quick-paced, easy-to-follow multiverse novel, The Infinite Infinite is an interesting take on parallel dimensions. So, what is it about? Imagine waking up one morning to a better life, a beautifully stylized home, an elevated position at your job, a cleaner society. Oh, and there's a catch. Your boyfriend may be a murderer with access to the most powerful invention in human history. This is exactly how Nina Marks woke on August 8th. Kidnapped across the multiverse, Nina has to navigate her way home. An action-packed journey that will transport readers across several stops in the multiverse. This is a thrilling read for fans of Michael Crichton and the sci-fi genre. See how these parallel universes came to be because of one critical change in history. What if Eleanor Roosevelt had been president? I honestly don't know anything about Eleanor Roosevelt. But I'm not American, so I know that she was the wife of one of the other presidents, I think. Anyway, still, I think that's a fascinating idea, and I was really curious to read this, and I was very thankful to the author for sending me a free copy, so that's awesome. So multiverse has been around for decades, but it's been propelled into the forefront recently with Marvel, of course, with Rick and Morty, and last year with that Everything Everywhere All at Once movie. I thought that movie was amazing and hilarious, but my 65-year-old mother-in-law was highly perplexed by it, which I also thought was kind of funny, though I was not surprised. Anyway, back to this book. While it has a lot of thriller moments, as the back blurb says, it is a thriller, it's less about finding a better life than accepting that sometimes bad stuff happens and we have to deal with it. It's not about running from our issues, it's about facing them. And I think that was the kind of important underlying thread to this story. So it is a kind of an action story. We're trying to figure out who this murderer is, what dimension he's in. She's traveling to different dimensions to try to escape him and find information, things like that. But overall, it does have this kind of important kind of life message in it. But it wasn't in your face. I thought that was a really great balance. It's also a lot of fun. It's a very short novel with tiny chapters, lots of dialogue, and easy-to-follow explanations of how the multiverse in this iteration functions. The action is snappy, and the story moves at a good clip. The main character, Nina, is interesting because she isn't really interesting. She's a bit bland, kind of basic, but I think that's intentional. She goes on to see what she could have been and when she put her mind to it, which I thought was a really interesting arc. It kind of was a similar arc to Everything Everywhere All at Once, but this book came out before that, so clearly that movie copied this. I did enjoy the alternate version of Earth that had some gender bias flipping in it, as well as other aspects that were interesting. I don't want to spoil it. In that vein, the one thing I could have had a bit more of was more multiverses, though. I love when multiverse media show various iterations of Earth, kind of like in Rick and Morty. I will admit, I really do enjoy that show. I realize that one small segment of the fandom is very, very toxic, to the extent that if you're on a date and a man says his favorite show is Rick and Morty, it can sometimes be a red flag. Not because the show has ever really been misogynistic, and the later seasons, especially after they added women writers, have grown the female characters considerably, but you should probe deeper into why a guy would say this. If he says he loves the show because it's funny or the multiverse aspects or the sci-fi is good, then that's fine. But if he says this because he identifies or venerates Rick, that's the red flag. Rick is a little bit of an asshole, and the guy who wants to be Rick is not a guy you want to date. Anyway, my favorite episode of that show, of course, is when they go on that story train. That was so funny. Anyway, where was I? I think the only thing about this book that I could have had more of, because it is a really good book, is that I wish there were more universes in the book. I'm really fond of multiverse stories when they go to all these different dimensions and they're all different, and sometimes it's just mundane things, like socks were never invented, or thoughtful things like what if for some reason in one universe we had an extra hour in the day, or I especially love when zany things happen, like what if we were all cats? Anyway, if you hate zany multiverse, definitely check The Infinite Infinite out because it's definitely not zany. It's got a dark matter feel to it. It's very realistic. If you want zany, well, you should still check this out because it's quite fun. There's no horse cops or Vikings in it, but that's fine. It's really interesting, and I definitely recommend it.